All right, let's get started. My name is Taylor. I'm the education coordinator here at the Utah Apartment Association. Can everybody hear me okay? Okay, because I'd rather not use the mic. I look goofy enough with the bow tie. I don't want to mess it up with adding a little string underneath. Today is the general membership meeting. Welcome and thank you for coming. I'm excited for the topic tonight. I think it should go really well. We have some very good information to share. But first I have a couple of announcements about upcoming classes and events. My clicker will work. There we go. First, next month's meeting, we will be talking about roof repairs and about speeding up turnovers. It should be a great class. We're excited for that topic as well. It should be interesting. By the way, if you ever have a suggestion for a topic for this class, this is about the time of year where we start to plan next year's topics. So if you're interested, email me. My name is Taylor, and you can email me at taylor@uaahq.org. And I'll be happy to bring that up to the committee that decides on the topics for these classes. If you are interested in going golfing with us, we have just a few spots available left on June 15th for our golf tournament that the association puts on. We'll be at Talents Cove. If you are interested, email events@uaahq.org and find out more details about the spaces that are still available. By popular demand, we are going to be offering a free concealed carry gun safety class. We have a member of the legislature who will teach it for us. Normally these classes cost up to $50. They are free for the first 50 of our members who sign up for it. And so we are putting that on. It will be on Saturday, July 18th for anyone who is interested. There are sign-up sheets in the back if you want to grab one for that. And then the big kahuna of all the events coming up. On November 29th, we have a 7-day cruise in the Eastern Caribbean that we are doing as the association. If you're interested in joining us, there's paperwork in the back. You can see the details for that. The most exciting thing about the cruise, though, if you are a current member of the association and you refer a new member to join the association, you are automatically entered into a drawing. And the drawing will get you free airfare and free passage on the cruise. So if you're interested, make sure you refer a member. If you are not a member today and you have a neighbor who is and you want to join, elbow them and see how much they'll owe you if you have them refer you. So we'd love to have as many people referred as possible. Last but not least, we have our UPro classes, which we teach now twice a month, once on the second Tuesday in the evening and once on the third Friday in the morning. This is our 32 hours divided up into 8 classes of everything we could think to teach landlords. It's as in-depth as we can possibly make it on general principles of how to run a rental property. These classes, there are 8 different topics. Like I said, we have upcoming July 9th legal regulations class in the evening and July 17th the marketing and systems class. If you're interested in learning more about this, you can go onto our website or you can email me. It's a great series of classes, and when you are done, you get a nice pin and the right to use the logo and to call yourself a UPro, which is a huge marketing advantage because now you are a Utah professional rental operator. So let's get down to business and go straight into our first topic, renting to pets. And now, this is great attendance today. I'm attributing it all to the fact that I put this picture in the email, so there may be more puppies and kittens and things like that in future emails. We'll see how that goes. Renting to pets is a tough topic. A lot of people don't allow pets. How many of you have a no pets policy? Okay, about a third to half of you. Okay, so what I'm teaching you tonight, you're welcome to keep that policy, but these are some ways that you can make money by changing your mind, or at least considering it. So let's go through some of these things. First off, this is the general equation for how property management works. First principle, asset management. Keep your property in good condition. Second, contract enforcement. Make sure that the tenant is abiding by the contract. And third, customer service. Make sure the tenant is happy. All of those lead to profit. How do pets come into this equation? Well, they're a big drag on asset management, aren't they? Huge drag on asset management. Contract enforcement, that's kind of your take. Yes, if there's a pet, that means you're going to have a more complex contract. But it also means they're not going to be sneaking in a pet, at least hopefully, right? We'll talk more about that. And then customer service, this is the big one. This is where you make most of the money on this issue. So it's important to keep these things in mind that there's a balance to the equation. It's not all one-sided. So let me give you my example when it comes to somebody who says, I will never allow a pet in my apartment. If somebody came to you and offered you $1 million deposit to have a goldfish, would you let them? Of course! What is is the risk of allowing a goldfish? Next to none, right? What is the security you just got with $1 million deposit? Huge. So now the question is, at what point does security balance out risk? Okay? So that's what we're talking about tonight, is there's risk. If you take more risk on, you can sometimes make a lot more money if you calculate and do the math correctly. So, let's give the second example. Say this little guy moves into the apartment and does $500 worth of damage. But if you got a $1,000 deposit on top of your regular deposit, and if you got $2,500 during the life of the lease in extra fees and extra rent, did you come out ahead? Yeah, you made a lot more money than you lost because you were smart about it, right? So think through, once again, what are the risks versus the extra security that you can get. And then last but not least, if you have a family like this come and want to rent to you, or anybody wants to come and rent to you, unless they are a clear risk that you just can't tolerate, the best thing to do is, instead of saying no, say yes if. Somebody has bad credit and just saying, sorry, I won't rent to you, say, yeah, I'll rent to you if you get a cosigner. If somebody has other problems, you can say, yes, I'll rent to you, but you're going to have to pay a higher amount of rent, or pay a much larger security deposit. Okay? So that opens up a negotiation. So instead of just turning people away, you figure out what circumstances am I comfortable renting to you under? And then you do the math. Make sense to everybody? Any comments or questions on this so far?
But before you negotiate, you need to make sure their income can afford that extra price.
Right. You need to make sure that this is going to work out. And income is one of the hardest ones to negotiate on, isn't it? Because if they just can't afford it, they can't afford it. Okay? So let's talk about no pets policy. Here are the pros. Biggest ones, less damage and simpler contracts, right? Anything else anybody has to add to that? What are the reasons why would you choose to have a no pets policy?
Because we've had people that were allergic, and so we've lost people because there was a pet
Okay,
that had
so
been-
future tenants, that's a form of damage. That inevitably, people or pets or existence does damage to the place, and you could say dander is a damage. That's why you get a super big deposit, so you can do a super thorough cleaning and not have any allergies left behind.
The impact it would have on other tenants.
Ah, very interesting.
Dog around.
Right, so tenants' neighbors don't want the dog, right?
Right.
Or they now want a dog, and they get mad that they don't get one, right? Very good. Those are big impacts. Anyone else have any other reasons?
Liability.
Liability, for insurance purposes specifically, right? Right. Okay?
Well, and starting with a no-pay policy is a good way to get extra money.
Ah, well, so
Because
we're
now it
going.
becomes a marketing thing, so.
Right. And so now instead of just saying no pets, you say, well, if you come talk to me, we'll negotiate. And so here are some of the possibilities that you can. The flip side, some of the cons to having a no pet policy. First, if you say no pets at all, you're cutting off a large section of the market. We'll talk about that next. So it makes it harder to get renters. Also, you're going to have to deal with companion animals anyway. If somebody comes to you and they say, I have a companion animal, boy, you're going to have to know what to do in that situation. So you're going to have all these policies and all this work in place anyway. And you're not going to get any extra money from those companion animals. We'll talk about that later as well. You have to deal with unauthorized pets. You say no pets, they're going to sneak it in. Whereas if you say, come talk to me if you want a dog, well, okay, we'll sit down and make the negotiations. We're going to make it work. Then at least it gives them the window to come talk to you first before they sneak it in. Less additional revenue. You can make a lot of money, like John said. You can open this door to additional revenue, additional security, etc., by being willing to negotiate on it. And the last one, and whether or not this is playing on your heartstrings or not, homeless pets. The animal shelter says the number 3 reason why they get an animal dropped off is because the landlord said they couldn't have it and they need that place. So that's not a business decision, that's up to you to decide how it works. So let's talk about marketing really quick. First point, 57% of renters in the United States have a pet. If you put on your ad online, no pets, more than half of the people that are looking for a place are going to skip your ad. Not even look at it. They don't care how awesome of a deal it is. They don't care about the neighborhood. They don't care about anything else. That's the first thing they see, and that's the first thing they skip it for. So it's important to look at that. And I have a guest, actually, if you want to come on up, Tracy.
Oh, I'd love to.
one of the members of the association is Tracy here, and she's going to explain what she does to help you with this issue.
What I do to help you, my name is, and thank you, Taylor, this is wonderful. My name is Tracy Thomas. I own a website called dogfriendlyrental.com. It's a free listing website if you have a rental property and you allow dogs. It's free to list, also it's free to the general public to come and look. As you were saying, 57% of renters have a pet. Now, in any market, we're not going to turn away 57% of our market share. So, and also I wanted to let you know I'm a landlord. So I have rental houses as well. I rent to, obviously, people with pets. And how do I go about making sure that they're good people, they're good dogs? The first thing I ask anybody who comes in with a pet is I ask for a doggy resume. It's on the website. You can actually link to what the doggy resume is. What it is I want their license number. I want to make sure that they're a legal pet. They're licensed with whatever county you're in. I also want to know where their vet records are. I want to know that they're up on all their vaccinations. And I want a letter from the old landlord. I also want a letter from a daycare provider, someone who does dog walks with the dogs. I want very well socialized dogs. And then I meet the dog. So this way, right now I have, well, statistics say that if you rent to people with dogs, you will have renters 23 to 46 months. Currently, I have some folks in Sugar House. They've been there for almost 4 years. So I don't think they're going anywhere. It's just a great policy to retain my tenants. Now, a couple things that I always do is, first of all, I'm always going to do a credit and background check on everyone. You can see a pattern of behavior with humans when you do a credit and background check. The other thing that I do is I go in quarterly. And I could tell you horror stories when I didn't go in quarterly and I didn't do those quarterly inspections. When that one cat turned into 10. Yeah, it happens. I always go in and I've got to know that cat. That cat has to be on the form that the landlord association, the apartment owners, gives us, and it's a pet lease. It has every animal that's going to be in your house or your condo or your apartment, has their name, has their breed. So we know exactly what that cat looks like. It's a black cat. If I walk in, there's an orange tabby, then something's wrong. So this is how I keep my tenants. Go ahead.
And what do you do in that case? Now you've got 2 cats. What do you do?
First of all, I ask what the cat is. Whose cat is it? So, and then we verify. You know, it's my daughter's cat. She's moving out next month. And then I come back a week later and say, why is the cat here? So
are you going to tell that person they have to move?
I'm
what is
going
the outcome?
to find out. The outcome is, do you want to pay pet rent for that cat? That's the bottom line. Because pet rent, and I don't know how many of you are charging pet rent for those of you. Anybody? All right, great. Pet rent is an excellent way to keep people responsible for their animals. But the only way that we can do that is to keep up on the animals and to walk in the door and just make sure we know who's living in the house. Okay?
Is
Yes.
pet rent a bigger deposit or so much more a month?
So much more a month.
And we'll talk about that.
Yeah, and I'm sure you have some stats on that. So, and they're, I think general $25 a month per pet, give or take. So, and it works out very well. But the key is you have to know what kind of humans you're dealing with, that they're good pet owners. I have very good pet owners living in my homes. So, and they tend to stay a lot longer. And we have a resource for you. It is a free list. Very easy to go in and list your homes, list your apartments, and we do a lot of advertising within the animal community. So if there are people moving into town and they're looking for a place that is friendly to dogs or friendly to cats, they're going to go to our website. So please use it. It's free. So, and I'll be around if y'all have any other questions. Thank you. Yes?
What's that about?
Birds.
Birds.
I had one that moved in a bird, and it was a It was a big bird.
Oh, yeah.
The cage was huge, and it was messier than the cat that we allowed. So-
They're messy creatures.
So how do you, is
Um,
it the same thing?
It is
for
the same
birds?
thing.
Okay.
I don't know, I've never heard of a bird getting pet rent, but the larger birds, yeah, they can take down molding. What?
Noisy.
Oh, and they're noisy, yeah, you're very right. So you have to get a good owner, and I guess that's the key with
Yeah,
everything.
we'll cover a lot of this
Yeah.
perfectly.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming, Tracy.
Thanks.
And her resources are available in the back, and you can find out more on her website. There was a question.
Either you or Tracy have any counsel on dealing with other tenants who may not like living next to a pet? Or
We'll get there.
whose children are afraid of pets, or?
We'll talk about that in a little bit, but it comes down to a business decision, right? So you decide which tenants and how do you negotiate it and things like that. But we'll talk about that in just a moment. So first off, let's talk about the assistance animals briefly, because you have to allow them in. Here are some of the statistics on assistance animals. 50% to 80% of the requests for assistance animals, somewhere between half and 4/5, are false. The person just wants a pet. And they're desperate to get that dog, and so they got some doctor somewhere to help them do it. Somewhere in that neighborhood is false. Here's the tricky part though. Landlords with no pet policy are significantly more likely to get these false applications. And if they can give you just enough documentation, you have to accept it, and now you don't get extra deposit, you don't get extra pet rent, you don't get anything else out of it, and you have to allow the animal. Okay, so it's just worth considering. If you need to talk, we have a video from our meeting a few months ago where we talked about the new policies and the new procedure for vetting these to make sure that they are true and real. We're lucky. The Utah Apartment Association is the first and so far only organization that has ever gotten HUD to describe a process. For 30 years now, they've been saying, we won't tell you how to do it, but we'll tell you if you did it wrong, and we'll fine you $10,000. We finally, in a lawsuit, we're working with one of our attorneys, we got a process that they approved and said, yes, if you do this, it's okay to do it this way. So we now have those forms, they're available to our members, and this is a huge deal. So look at those forms. If you want to see the video, we do post all of these meetings up online. You can see there's a camera rolling right now, and we put this all on our website. So ask me later, I'll be happy to give that to you.
Kelly mentioned that there's no additional pet fees, which I was aware of, but he also said no additional deposits.
Right.
You're not allowed to ask for an additional deposit for
Right, it's exactly, here's the legal theory. You can't say somebody, you owe me a bigger deposit because you're black or Chinese or because you're Buddhist or whatever. You can't ask for an additional deposit because they are in a wheelchair. You can't ask for an additional deposit if they have a medically necessary treatment in the
Right,
animal.
but couldn't you ask for an additional deposit for having additional people staying in the place?
Sure, additional people, but not for this medical treatment from this. So you couldn't say I need more because you have diabetes or something else. It's the same theory. So that's one reason why you should have a high deposit to begin with, because you can charge your standard deposit. You want to make sure it will cover whatever damage you may get.
So what you're saying is if it's a request for accommodation for a pet, you can't charge more for that, but you can charge more for if you take pets, you can charge more for that pet. You know, like you said, the pet fees, extra.
Right. If it's a pet,
apply that to
yeah.
the,
So if it's a pet, then yes. If it is an assistance animal, then it's not a pet, and you can't.
even though you have.
Even if you already have all these other policies in
pets
place.
allowed, and
Yeah.
they have to pay more than the guy with the assistant.
Right, right.
And they don't complain.
So if somebody has a recreational wheelchair, then you can charge them an extra deposit on it. If somebody has a medically necessary wheelchair, no, you can't. It's the same thing here with the animals. Well, we have more about that. I just don't want to get bogged down too much because we do have lots to go. So let's talk about the 3 ways you generally get income and security from pets. By the way, there's lots of kitties and puppies in this because I want you looking at that. First, additional deposit. You get a larger deposit to cover potential damage that might be caused by this animal. And you calculate that based off of your experience or off of the industry standards, look it up and find out what kind of damage potential is there. If it is a cat, well then, however much you think it might damage, look at the place. Does it have lots of carpet or drapes that might be an issue? Look at the animal. Does it have its claws in the front still? Things like that. Figure out what the potential damage is and charge that large of a deposit. By the way, we call it an additional deposit. In Utah, it hasn't happened yet, but we're just being careful. There was a case out in Colorado where there was a gentleman who paid his 1 month deposit for him to live there and a month deposit for his dog to live there. The guy came home drunk and got in a fight with the wall, put a few holes in there, did a lot of damage, and the landlord went to use all the money to fix it. And the judge said the dog didn't do anything, you can't use the dog's deposit. So now we put it all in one big pot. And we say whatever money comes in gets into one deposit, and whatever damage is done comes out of that deposit. We don't segregate pet deposits to anything else. It's all one deposit. We call it an additional deposit.
So let's say the opposite happens, and a year later the tenant moves out, and the place is immaculate. But he had a dog or a cat in the house, and you want to keep that extra $300, and he says, no, the place has not been damaged. I get it all done.
You have to give back a deposit. You do not have to give back a fee.
Right.
So you segregate out, this is a deposit, and this is a fee. And we keep this fee. So say it was a $500 deposit, well now it's a $300 deposit and a $200 fee. You keep the $200, don't have to give that back. You have to give back any deposit. So you decide how much. You can charge all fee, all deposit, whatever you want. But be aware, if you go too high, you're going to lose the tenant. And so it's not worth doing. So you want to figure out what's reasonable.
But if it's a pet deposit, you have to give it back?
Yeah, any deposits. Whatever kind of deposit in the state of Utah, if the place is in good condition when they move out, they get back, 100%. That's why we segregate fees and deposit. There's no such thing as a non-refundable deposit. Judges have said that's why we start calling it a fee. Pretty simple. And then the one in the middle, pet rent. Okay? So I don't have super great statistics, but $25 is about the average in Utah. You can go wherever you need to with this. Okay? I know people who charge $25 up to a certain weight limit, and then from there they have brackets. And so they say up to 100 pounds or something, $25, 100 to 200 pounds is $50 extra a month. Anything over 50 pounds, come talk to me and we'll figure out what we're going to do. Okay? Whatever you want to charge, you can. But once again, if you become excessive, you lose the tenant. So it's a negotiation and it's a marketing tool. Okay?
Why is it you would increase the rent because of the large dogs, right?
If you want to do it that way, because you feel like there's a potential for more damage. Which leads me to, well, I'll get to that in just a moment.
All right.
And then background checks. Tracy talked about this. Animal identification forms. We are renting to this animal. Not a cat, this cat. If they get a new cat, then that's a problem. If that cat leaves and they get another new cat, we don't know who that cat is. We don't know what its background is, whether it is a potential for damage or anything else. So that's a problem. So if they get a new animal in, you give them a 3-day notice and you say, okay, you have 3 options. Get rid of the cat, you all leave, or give me an application for this new animal and we'll consider it and we'll negotiate what the conditions are that you can have this new animal in. Okay. Reference from previous landlords. We already talked about that. It's vital, important. Veterinary records. You want veterinary records. If for no other reason than this, a responsible pet owner is going to take their pet to the vet, which means that they're probably a responsible person and going to clean up after the animal, right? It's just a theory, but boy, does it work, right? And then you want to know things, vaccinations. Your insurance company will be a lot more comfortable with that dog if they know that it's been vaccinated. The cats, if you have potential for a lot of clawing, then you could say, all right, is it declawed? If it is, then I'm going to be willing to give you a better deal. If not, then you're going to have to pay a larger deposit. And you want to know all of the medical history of the animal. You want to know if it has problematic medical conditions. And then you have the right to make any restrictions you want on breed, size, age, species, whatever. So you are welcome to say no birds. Okay? And say yes, cats and dogs, no birds. Or you're welcome to say I'm fine with birds and mammals, but I draw the line at reptiles. Whatever you want, you can make your rules as you need. Okay? Cities can no longer ban breeds. That was a law that was passed. So the city can't say no pit bulls or whatever. You as a landlord can. You can make whatever rules and requirements you have for that. But the city can no longer ban it, and that means you don't have the city to lean on anymore to say that. Okay? Don't assume that bigger always equals more damage. Little dogs can be a surprising amount of damage. Which is why you do quarterly inspections. You want to know what's going on, but you're welcome to when you do your assessment, say, okay, what kind of dog is this? what kind of damage potential does it have? Okay, does that answer your question I had a little bit earlier? So you're not always going to assume that, but a lot of people do. And well, a bigger dog has a capacity to do more damage, but a little dog sometimes has more will to do damage. Why? But that just seems to be how it works out. Kittens and puppies are often more of a problem than dogs and cats. They're not trained, and often the people who just got, yeah, I got a kitty, they have no background now. They don't have no testing to see if they're going to be responsible pet owners. So you want to test out the human and the animal a little bit in this situation. Are they seasoned pet owners who know what they're doing with this kitten? That's very different than, hey, I'm 18, I just moved out of my house and I got my first cat. Okay, so you want to know what's going on with that. And then exotic animals may have unanticipated problems. So if it is an alligator, or a kangaroo, or something like that, think very hard and carefully about what your rules and requirements are going to be in that type of a situation. Okay? Just be careful. And then deal with problems when they arise. First set of problems, damage of any kind. First thing you do is repair and deduct. If it's done damage to the actual place, scratched up the floor or something like that, repair and deduct. Take it out of their deposit now, fix it now, and then tell them, you have to pay me now for that damage. That way you keep the deposit full, so when they move out, you have the whole deposit to use. This can be kind of a negotiation with pets sometimes, because sometimes, say that you have hardwood floors and the dog has scratched it all up. If you come in and refinish it, but they're going to plan on staying there for another 6 months, it's going to get scratched up again. So at that point, you could go to them and negotiate and say, all right, this damage has been done. Are you willing to pay extra deposit to ensure that it's able to be covered? Or else, I may have to go on to an eviction. You can say, look, this animal has done damage and it needs to leave. Or else you all need to leave. Okay. Other behavior problems, aggressive behavior and loud noises. These are certainly the reasons to say you need to rein this behavior in, or else you need to get rid of the animal, or you need to leave. Aggressive behavior towards you, towards other tenants, something like that. Okay. Which brings me to the gentleman over here's question. What do you do if you have a neighbor who doesn't want a pet, right, at all? If it's because the animal's aggressive, then you get rid of the animal, obviously, if it's because of something like that. But what if it's just a family, the kid's just terrified of dogs? Well, that's something to ask your tenants about when you have a new tenant coming in. Say, go to your neighboring tenants and say, what are your issues? Do you have any problems with this? And if you value your current tenants, you might have to go to these applicants and say, I'm sorry, because of those current tenants, I'm not currently accepting animal applications for that place. Or, if you have that dog there and you have new applicants coming in, the same thing, and they say, well, I don't like that dog. Well, I'm sorry, I value my existing tenants' relationship right now. I'm sorry, you're going to have to, if you don't want to be next to this dog, go find somewhere else. Okay? So it comes down to a relationship you currently have versus an applicant. But if it's kind of thrown in together, boy, they didn't complain about it before, but it's been 6 months and now they're complaining. That point, you find out the facts, and that's why you create house rules. Okay, what can the animal do? Where can it be? If it's inside all day, except for when it's on a leash and going for a walk, then maybe that's something that the other person just has to suck it up for. But if the dog's running around the yard that's shared, yeah, that's a big issue. Does that kind of answer your question, sir? Or do you have more? Yeah. That's just kind of how it works. You got to negotiate because you're going to have both sets of tenants. Okay? You're going to have to worry about. And last, liability. Your insurance company. You want to talk to your insurance company when you go over anything other than a small animal. Okay? You want to talk to your insurance company about what kind of liability do I have if I rent to a large pit bull. Is that something that my insurance company is going to have a problem with? If they say, oh no, we don't have a problem, but it's going to be extra $50 a month. Okay. Well, then you go to the tenant applicant and say, well, on top of everything else, there's a $50 insurance fee that you have to pay me every month. And if you're okay with that, great. Or if the insurance company says, heck no, we're not doing anything. All right, well then, that's what you got.
Well, and also, there has never been a case in the state of Utah where the landlord has been liable for the actions of the pet,
right,
of the tenant's pet. And that's because of the Apartment Owners Association. I mean, they really...
Right, well, there's no way that we would allow a law like that to go into place.
No, so, yeah, just making sure that they also have rental insurance as they walk in.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Everyone should have renter's insurance anyway. It's cheap. Okay, last time I went to get renter's insurance, I was a tenant, I went to my car insurance, people who provide me car insurance, said, my landlord says I need rental insurance. They said, okay, it's $25 a month. And you get a $50 a month discount on your auto insurance by having 2 policies with us. It saved me money to have the insurance. Now, not everywhere does that.
25, you pay too much. Most of my tenants are paying.
Yeah.
14.
Yeah, it's usually even cheaper than that.
Yeah.
And so it's great, and it will cover any liability that the tenant might have. But there's no way that you're going to get sued unless you do something egregious like go rile the animal up and then sick it on the neighbors, right? Other than that, you're pretty darn safe. So there's no real concern there. And then this is the biggest point on this, and this is where I will leave off on this topic. Responsible tenants are responsible tenants. If you do a good check on everything else, and they're a good responsible tenant, then they're probably going to make a good responsible tenant. So check their credit, check their criminal history, check their employment history, check everything else that you're normally going to check first. If somebody comes to you and says, I have a dog, you say, okay, well, first I need to see if you're going to be a good tenant, and then we'll worry about the dog. Okay? That's the first and most important place to start. So that's all I have for this topic. I'll take any questions you got. Yes, sir.
When you have an unauthorized pet in the house, what's the standard procedure, and is there anything limiting you from issuing fines or fees for having an unauthorized pet?
No, if you build a fee into your lease, then you can certainly do that.
It would need to be specified up
Yeah,
front.
you would specify it up front. And then the other thing is, you would give them a 3-day notice to come in compliance with the lease, either by getting the animal authorized, getting rid of the animal, or everybody leaving.
And so my standard policy is to give that 3-day notice, but then when I go out there another month later and the pet's still there, now they've had a notice, and now I would like to issue a fine. So as long as I specify it up front.
Yep, as long as you specify it up front, you can use those fines.
How about putting that fine in there with that 3-day notice? Now that's as good as specifying.
Right. You just want to specify how much it's going to be way in advance. Like when the tenancy starts, hey, if you get an unauthorized pet, it's going to be this much.
Okay.
And then you serve another 3-day notice when you see that same, or any other pet a month later, and then the third time it's a nuisance. And you evict them on a nuisance notice. All right, another question?
You can fine them the first time, though, right?
Yeah, you can fine them the first
I would
time.
fine them the first time.
Yeah.
No reason to.
I know a landlord who has a smoking fine built into their lease. It would be the same kind of principle. You just put it in there. If I catch you smoking in the apartment, it's an automatic $500 fine. Or fee, or whatever you want to call it. You should do the same kind of
Doesn't
thing.
matter what you call it.
Yeah, just fee or fine, one or the other.
Okay.
All right, well then I'm going to move on to the other exciting topic for the night. John has
What's a reasonable amount to take as a fee for allowing it? You know, I want to take a pet unless I make at least an extra $50 per month. But getting the fee part, I'm not interested in. And I double my deposit, by the way. I take $3,000 if they can bring in that.
Okay.
So that's how I weed out whether animal damage or not. I say you give me a lot of money, but I have nicer places. But I pretty much double the deposit. But the one I'm not good at is getting the fee.
Right.
That's another significant source of extra revenue.
It's to the market.
So
Does anybody charge a pet fee? How much do you charge?
30 to 50 depending on the type of property. A property, an extra $50 a month, be per pet.
That's per month.
So that's pet rent.
I'm saying that's
That's
pet
pet.
rent. I'm saying the pet fee that you charge a month.
$25.
That's all? 25 just to accept the pet?
Well, if they have 2 pets, it's an extra 50.
Are you saying per month or?
No, just up front, that's the pet
That's
fee.
the
Yeah.
upfront.
That, essentially the application fee for the pet.
I thought I saw
$250.
$200.
Yeah.
That's what I was going to say. I would want
Mine's
several hundred.
$250.
$250?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I'm.
No, that's just $250 up
Yeah.
front. So there's
Are
three
you
things.
talking about the fee, the pet rent, or the fee?
No, the fee.
Oh,
The
yes.
application.
Yeah, depending on the property, it's $300 to $500. Yeah.
Okay, and
So
then-
like A properties would be 500, B properties would be 300 because incomes are different.
Right.
Yeah.
And then you're taking what, 30 to 50, 25 to 50 bucks a month per
Mhm.
animal?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So once again, those are the three sources. You decide how they work. The only ways I can get in serious trouble as a nonprofit association is setting prices. So I can't tell you how to charge, but I can tell you the general principles that you want to be flexible. You want to make as much money off of this as you can, but you don't want to be so excessive that you kill the goose that laid the golden egg, right?
Well, I've learned that if you advertise it on your ads, people will read it, and the bad pet owners won't even call.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes, sir.
Coming back up, you were talking about non-refundable.
Right.
We're a little new to the rental, we see that on the listing, that they'll say $1,500 deposit, $1,200 refundable. So that
It's not exactly the best way. So just because a judge a few years ago threw out non-refundable deposits, we just don't call it that anymore. And we're perfectly fine. We have our deposit, which is 100% refundable, and our fee, which is not refundable. We call it our lease initiation fee. You can call it a cleaning fee, move-in fee, paperwork fee, whatever you want to call it, fee. And then in this case, you're going to, on top of that, add a pet fee on top of everything else. Okay. But yeah, the deposit is fully refundable. You'll see that wording in ads from time to time. You know, $1,000 deposit, $800 refundable, or something like that. Just be aware that that's thin ice. You want, even if you advertise that, once you get down to the lease, you can explain, well, this is what it is. That's where it really matters, is what's in the lease.
But it's refundable only if the place is...
Of course. This is something that you're keeping to offset any damage they did. Any damage they do, you're going to repair and take out of that. So damages include unpaid rent, actual physical damage to the property, any other fees, fines, anything else they owe you. Take that all out first and then refund anything that's left over, or send them a bill for anything excessive. Okay. All right, well, let's get going on. Was somebody, I contacted somebody from the Water Conservation District. Did somebody come? We want to be talking. If not, then I'll keep going with what I've got. All right, perfect. First important thing about landscaping, what are tenants looking for when it comes to landscaping? And the most important thing is that it be attractive. This blew my mind, but I've looked at the numbers, and it's come back from several different statistical studies. Tenants are more concerned when shopping for an apartment about the exterior appearance than the interior. And I could not figure that out for a long time. It confused the heck out of me. Then I was talking to somebody about it, and they said, well, tenants know they're probably not going to change anything on the outside. They look at the inside and they see the potential. Well, I'm going to put this up there. Well, I don't like those curtains, but I can replace them. Or, you know, this wall is huge and bare, but I'm going to put a poster on it, whatever, right? They see the potential on the inside. On the outside, they see it as it is, and they pretty much expect it to stay that way. So that's what it comes down to, especially with landscaping. They rate more highly the exterior than the interior. It's just a good general principle to know, but especially when it comes to this. The second thing tenants look for is useful. They have kids and they want a yard, they're going to want a yard that the kids can run around on. They're not going to want the yard to be at a 45-degree angle slope, right? Or something like that. They're going to want grass for kids or for pets to run around on if that's what they're concerned about. They also want low maintenance. And I can't stress this is an important thing for you too. If they're going to have to take care of the place, they don't want to be pulling weeds too often. They don't want to be mowing. They don't want a yard that's going to be difficult to mow. Once again, a steep angle or something else like that. Okay? And the last one is green. And this comes down to two types of green. Either nice and lush and beautiful, or green as an environmentally friendly. You're looking at two different demographics here. Older people, they want that nice green lawn. Great. Younger people, they're willing to say, hey, I'm cool because I have this xeriscape fancy low water usage yard. Both of them are draws to different demographics of tenants. Look at what kind of demographics you're going after and decide your landscaping based on that. Okay? So let's talk about durable and low maintenance. First thing when you come to re-landscaping, what are the upkeep costs? Am I going to save money by installing this new type of landscaping? Hopefully yes, especially in water usage or in time spent maintaining it and stuff. But you have to consider if it's going to cost me $1,000 to re-landscape this and I'm going to save $100 a year, is that worth it? Well, over 10 years probably. If it's $5,000 and you're only save $25 a year, probably not worth it. So you want to see what the cost versus benefits are before you attempt any landscaping. Next thing, make sure you specify to the tenants whose responsibility is the weeding and the mowing. Right? How many of you have your tenants do those? How many of you have had a tenant not do that when they were supposed to? What do you do?
If they don't do it and they've had 3 warnings, then we hire landscaping and they're charged for it to be done.
Okay, so they're charged to have the landscaping done. Okay. I would build a fee into the lease again. Okay, look, you decide. If you want us to pay a landscaper to do it, it's going to be $50 extra a month. If you say you will do it and you don't do it, that's $100 extra a month. that we have to come in and do it. That's just how I've been doing it, right? And so they decide, okay, I swear I'm going to save some money doing this, but if they don't do it, then that costs them more than if they just up front said, yeah, I don't want to take care of it. That's how I do it. It's up to you to decide how you want to do it. Yes, sir?
I think $50 a month is something about 1950 prices.
Okay, yeah, I'm just being in general, yeah. And it depends on your relationship with your landscaper. It depends on if you have somebody who hire for multiple properties, they may give you a discount. It depends on whether it's the 12-year-old down the street that just comes and mows. But it's important to take that in price, because how much do you, those of you who do hire landscapers, about how much do you pay for it? $25 a week?
Yeah.
Anybody have anything different?
No.
Okay, so it's pretty standard.
But that means I've got a landscaper going into the backyard, so I know what backyard looks like. And
That's important too. That's a very good thing to know, right? Have somebody that can check that out for you. That's important. All right, so just some general principles now. Flowers, perennials are your friends. You may say, but I like these annual flowers. They're so much bigger and prettier and stuff like that. Okay, great. Use them for your own yard. But you don't want to be over there every spring replanting everything. Great to change up your own yard every year. You get a little different look. Fine, that's fun. If your tenant's yard, though, you want plants that are going to be coming back year after year. Bushes. You want slow-growing shrubs because you don't want to be over there maintaining it all the time. Also, for security purposes, be careful about letting your bushes get out of hand. You know, especially if you have a well right there, window well, and you have a bush in front of it, that bush gets big, that's a perfect spot for a criminal to hop down, and they can do their business to open that window without anybody being able to see them. So you want to make sure that you, for security reasons, you have all of your bushes trimmed. And then trees are a double-edged sword. Okay? On the one hand, look and value, people love them, they look sweet, and they want them. They also save you on utilities. You use less water on the lawn, watering the lawn. You use less electricity to cool the house because of the shade and things like that. It can be great. It can also rip up your sidewalks, your pipes, fill your rain gutters, do all kinds of fun things like that. So if you have trees, they are a plus, but make sure they are healthy and that they're in good shape. And I know some great tree trimmers and tree doctors. We have a couple actual people who are arbologists, I think they're called, that are members of the association. So if you need somebody, call me and I can get you their number and things like that. And now let's talk about water usage. And that's what most of the rest of this is. But any comments on any of that first? On plant choices? Okay, well, let's go. First, write down this website, conservationgardenpark.org. This is where most of the tips I got for the rest of this class come from. We will be putting them up on the website along with the video from this class and the presentation that you see here. But they also have tons of other resources in there, including plant species, lists. You can go in and say, okay, I want low water usage of this. I typed in grass. They had 65 different species of grass. Now, some of them were the big puffy things that look really nice, but I don't really call them grass. But they also had turf, different species of turf that have been developed and bred to be very drought resistant that are available. And they can tell you where you can buy them as well. So you can look at species, you can get all kinds of other tips there, it's great. But the most important thing when it comes to water are these two questions. Who pays for the water and who runs it? You want to clarify that early on. How many of you have your tenants pay for water? And how many of you just build it into the rent? Okay. It's fine to do either way, but you want to be careful how you do it, right? I kind of favor personally a mixed approach where I tell the tenants, I will pay up to this much for the water bill every month. If you go beyond that, you pay whatever's beyond that. Okay? That's just how I favor doing it. The reason being, I don't want this kind of scenario. They pay for all the water, but they run the sprinklers, and they get a high water bill, and they say, okay, I'm not running any sprinklers again for the rest of the summer. And suddenly that's going to cost you a lot more money than if you've been paying at least part of the water bill, right? That comes down to the second question, who runs the sprinklers? Do you go in, set everything up, and lock the box? Great. Gives you a good excuse to go over every couple months during the summer to make sure it's adjusted, whether up or down, for the amount of water. But that does create a disadvantage too. If it's raining and there's a shutoff on your thing that they just run down and push that, we don't need water today, you're not going to be there to go push that button, and so you're going to lose out on that advantage.
Our son just put in a new system, which some of you probably heard about, but he can do it from his phone, and he can turn his system on and off depending on what the weather cycle is.
And that's brilliant. And that is the new wave of technology coming in, where everything is controlled from your phone or from a digital account. And so you can do everything online. I've even read about new sprinkler systems that have automatic weather things so they know when it's raining and turn themselves off. Yeah, sensors. But if you can set everything up and run it all off of your phone, you don't even have to go over there. Well, it's still good to go over there every once in a while anyway, and it's a good excuse. But if you can run it that way, that would be fantastic. Do you know the brand?
I don't, but I'm sure you could Google
Oh, I'm
it.
sure you can as well. You can look it up. Yes.
With the water, we have a mixed approach as well, and we stress that with them that if the toilet is running nonstop and the water bill is high, you pay it, and it makes it gets us in there more often to address the problems when they're small, rather than all of a sudden the floor falls in because something was dripping and they didn't ever tell us.
Totally.
Which
totally.
we have had happen before.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a few of you who have had that happen here. There's another comment. Yes, John.
I was going to say, you make it easy for the tenant too with the equipment, like this fancy stuff that works automatically, or at least your box should be easy for them to change, so they don't have to, like they just press a button and increase it in percentage increments or something. It's not. The less complex it is, the more likely they are to be responsible.
Yeah, very much so. I agree very much.
Some of my properties are in cities that won't allow the renters to put the water bill in their own name, it must stay in the owner's name. Will you just have them reimburse, or what's the...
So usually, that's the annoying thing about water for a utility. You can put the gas bill in their name, and if they stop paying, the gas company tells you and you have a landlord agreement. Same thing with the power. The cities often won't let you do that with the water. We're working with them to try to get something like that, but we'll see. The easiest thing is you pay the water bill, and then you send them a copy and say, on top of your rent, pay this much. And then they just pay.
So, I have the same problem. So we email it to them, and they pay it, but we get it on, like the city sends it to us, email, on paperless. And so when it's just forwarded on to them, then you can keep an eye on how much water they're using. It will save you from if you know that there's a leak in the line, so that they don't end up having to pay for it.
Yeah.
Then that way they keep it. So if you have a website, you can just upload it to the website and they pay it.
What city is that?
There's bad noise here, and we're just having a hard time hearing some of those comments.
Great. I'll repeat them then. So she said that they have a system where they're emailed the bills and they just forward it to the tenant. And then the tenant, on their website, they'll upload the amount. And when the tenant pays their rent, it has that built in. It says you owe this much, right? Okay. So, yeah.
You can set it up paperless through the city. That's it too.
I think, yeah, almost any city now, they have at least that technology to email the bill. All right, let's talk about some tips for saving water. First, inspect your sprinkler system. Make sure there's adequate coverage for what you need, that there's no broken or leaking sprinkler heads, that the sprinklers aren't tilted, too high, too low, that they have the right nozzles and they're not, the little filter inside is not dirty or clogged. Okay? Just do a basic startup spring check, make sure everything's going well with those. The next thing is set your sprinkler system for what's called cycle and soak. Or there's other terms for it, but this is the one that the Conservation District uses. Here's the thing, you give it 5 inches of water, let's say you give it a little bit of water, right, to the lawn. It's only going to be able to absorb so much, and the rest stays on top and either runs off or evaporates. So here's the math, basically, as far as I understand it, and it could be better than this. If you water it for 20 minutes, it's only going to get water into this much here. But if you water it for about 7 minutes, it's going to get this much water, and then it's going to soak down. And then if you come back a couple hours later and water it for another 7 minutes, it's going to soak back down, and you get more water to the plant's roots in 14 minutes than you would have just watering 20 minutes total. Make sense? So you save water, you make your plants happier. So you just run it a couple hours apart. Take whatever system you're doing now and split it in half and see how it works. And the best time, of course, to run is in the evening or at night. So run it at midnight and then at 3 a.m., something like that. Just cut your cycle in half if your sprinkler system will let you do this, and then try it that way and see. And it's much more effective both for the water and for the plants. So you can do more with less.
Your sprinkler system won't let you do it, replace it, because you're making it complex for your tenant and you're wasting money yourself. So, I mean, honestly, the new systems are cheap for what they can do.
Yeah, it's just computer parts, and they hook up and they can be really, really cool. So it's worth looking into and seeing if you can do that. And if you have the capacity, you should use it.
Just with watering the lawn, deep watering allows for deep roots. If you just do your a few minutes, you end up with shallow roots. It takes a lot more water to keep lawn growing.
Exactly. You end
I
up
really question what you suggested there with the 2 short times.
So it's
and
so
it depends on the lawn itself. I mean, on the ground. If you've got heavy clay, it's not going to take the water anyway. If you have sand, it's going to go down like whoosh. I mean, so
great comment.
You've got to pay attention to your soil. To come up with something like that, which I don't think is.
So this is just what the scientists have said. If you let it soak in a little bit before you add on hot water instead of just adding it all, generally it works. But you're right, sir. You have to pay attention to your soil. And I have some resources about that, I think, on the next slide. Well, okay, first off, evaluate your timer, and we've already kind of talked about this, so I'll go to this. Here's the big resource I want for you. Phone number, call them. This is Utah State University Extension, and they work with water conservation districts, so I don't know exactly who will come out, but they will come out, they will test your soil, tell you what kind of soil it is, test your water, test your sprinkler system. They'll put out little cups all over the yard, and they'll measure how well is it doing watering. It's not watering over here enough, it's watering too much over here. They'll run all that for free. So they'll come out and do all of that so they can test your system and say, boy, you should run your sprinkler system this way. So maybe that cycle and soak thing I told you would work great. Maybe it won't because you have very rocky, sandy soil. So it's important to find out, and this resource for free, they'll come out and do a test. Okay, so it's a great opportunity.
The cycle and soak principle relies on that you divide it into the 2 waterings, but you do them in quick succession. So that you're not watering so much as to cause runoff. You give it a moment to